Tucker, you made a throwaway line, and the government says, you know, that's a great idea, but only for people who shouldn't be in the country in the first place.
I'm laughing because this is one of about 10 stories that I know you've covered where the government shows preference to people who have shown absolute contempt for our customs, our laws, our system itself, and they're being treated better than American citizens. Now, I know that the left and all the little gatekeepers on Twitter become literally hysterical if you use the term replacement, if you suggest that the Democratic Party is trying to replace the current electorate, the voters now casting ballots, with new people, more obedient voters from the third world. But they become hysterical because that's what's happening, actually. Let's just say it, that's true. If this was happening in your house, if you were in 6th grade, for example, and without telling you, your parents adopted a bunch of new siblings and gave them brand new bikes and let them stay up later and help them with their homework and gave them twice the allowance that they gave you, you would say to your siblings, you know, I think we're being replaced by kids that our parents love more. And it would be kind of hard to argue against you because look at the evidence. So this matters on a bunch of different levels, but on the most basic level, it's a voting rights question. In a democracy, one person equals one vote. If you change the population, you dilute the political power of the people who live there. So every time they import a new voter, I become disenfranchised as a current voter. So I don't understand why we don't understand this. I mean, everyone wants to make a racial issue out of it. Ooh, the white replacement theory. No. This is a voting rights question. I have less political power because they're importing a brand new electorate. Why should I sit back and take that? The power that I have as an American guaranteed at birth is one man, one vote, and they're diluting it. No, they're not allowed to do that. Why are we putting up with this?
Well, it's particularly interesting if you take small states like Vermont, for example, which has got a little more than 500,000 people. They're basically being the equivalent, you use the word replacement, but they're basically being rendered irrelevant just by the sheer numbers coming over the border in the course of any 1 year. So if the Democrats get their way and abolish the Electoral College, Vermont and Wyoming and all kinds of other states simply don't matter at all. What I don't get, Tucker, is why are people put up with this? Is it just because of incompetent framing of the issue by Republicans?
It's because of highly competent framing by the Democrats. They have framed immigration as a racial issue. So any complaint about immigration is a complaint born of racism. You're a racist if you're against it. But as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't really have that much to do with race, actually. I mean, this is people from a bunch of different countries and cultures. Most of them are Latin, but within Latin America, anyone who's ever been there can tell you, there's a huge range of people and of subcultures. Like, it's not as simple as they pretend it is. But it really is much deeper than race. Race is a factor for some people, but underneath it all, it has to do with what kind of country you want to live in and how much political power you have. By the way, I will never understand, as long as I live, why the so-called black leaders, Maxine Waters, people who claim to speak for black people, are sitting by and allowing black political power to disappear. Like, so in a generation, I really don't think that whoever replaces Maxine Waters in Compton is going to be listened to by anybody, because as a numerical matter, it just won't matter. Okay, so African Americans who, by and large, have been here for 400 years, their ancestors were taken here 400 years ago, they will have no say in how the country runs, because as a mathematical question, it just won't matter. No one wants to say this out loud, but it's true, and it has nothing to do with race. It has to do with the people who live here are being disempowered by a new group brought in without their consent by a political party that cares only about political power. If you frame it that way, I think everyone can kind of wake up and realize what's happening.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The black Americans will be the first victims of this, and they will be rendered demographically irrelevant, and they'll wonder, and they'll suddenly figure out, oh, all this Georgia Jim Crow talk is it was actually just a cover for something entirely different.
Exactly. That's what it is. And so when The Gap or Coca-Cola, which, by the way, has given type 2 diabetes like half the black population, but leaving that aside, when they get up and they're like, oh, Black Lives Matter, you know, we love black people, etc., they're actually supporting an immigration agenda that eliminates black political power. That's just true. And I don't know why. It's so obvious, even I can see it. And why is no one saying this?
Yeah.